So, welcome to our second webinar. We had our first webinar last month where we're starting to share stories from our community of In-Situ Pro users. But first, what is In-Situ? So we are a startup that is trying to bring future cities to life via augmented reality to foster collaboration around the process of urban change. We were founded 3 years ago by our founder, Donna, who's an architect, and founded In-Situ to give people the power that I think a lot of architects have to see the future coming up around us and wanting to share that with everyday people. And so we turn design and planning data into location-based mobile AR experiences to lower the friction to communicate and understand complex projects in situ in their natural place. That's where our name comes from. We empower residents, industry professionals, city leaders, community advocates to unlock better conversations about the future of their communities. And so we've been here for the last 3 years and had a big milestone this year where we launched In-Situ Pro, which is our do-it-yourself AR, geospatial AR publishing toolkit. It's web-based, it's no code. And we've started to build an amazing community over the last 6 months of our first users of this tool. And they're community advocates, architects, city leaders, and technologists. And so thanks to the people we've met that are using In-Situ Pro, we've come up with some amazing use cases, things that we've never imagined, using it for sharing your phone screen live on a Zoom call to do a virtual walk in the future. That's some amazing stuff that's come out of the community. So we wanted to do these webinars partially to share those experiences and share the work of our community who've been in this game of unlocking the future for quite some time. So this is our second webinar. We're hoping to do these every month with different topics. If you're interested in sharing your work, let us know. Some ideas that we've had for our next ones include 3D modeling tips, highway removal, and why are so many cities starting to remove highways? How can we use immersive visualization to help reimagine big projects like that? Lots of ideas. We have a survey at the end, so please let us know. So from there, I'm going to introduce our speaker, Sarah Vitale. We're really privileged to have Sarah from Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council here to talk about immersive visualization for resilience and specifically risk communication. And so Sarah has served as the planning director for the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. She specializes in urban design visualization, GIS mapping, and 3D modeling, and provides planning and technical support across the council's projects and programs. Happy to hand it over to you, Sarah.
Thanks, Nick. I'm gonna share my screen from you and make sure you can see this well.
Yeah, let me make sure I can stop sharing.
Oh,
1 second.
I always mess this up.
I always have trouble finding where to stop the share, and I just found it. Okay, there we go.
Can you see this?
Did everyone see Sarah's slides?
Yes.
Awesome.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you so much for the introduction and the opportunity to be the first user for your webinar series. That's a privilege. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks everyone for joining. And I get to talk about one of my favorite things to talk about, immersive visualization for any types of projects, but in particular, climate resilience projects. And I'm hoping to give you the government users perspective a bit. It might be something, I hope we have some government folks here. I think I saw a few in the chat. But I work for a regional government, a special district in Florida, Regional Planning Council, one of 10 in the state of Florida. And I work with 29 member governments, 6 counties, and 23 municipalities from throughout the region. That represents over 3.6 million people. And our role is to help coordinate communication and collaboration between these different governments and work on cross-jurisdictional issues. Issues like, for example, flooding or hurricane preparedness, things that one county or city could work on their own, but there's a benefit to all of them working together on these shared challenges. And I'm an urban planner, and when I finished school, I started working for an architect as one of my first jobs out of graduate school. And when I did that, it was really inspiring, and I learned that the planning discipline, or at least what I was exposed to, needed to grow and become better communicators and needed to embrace technology. So I learned about immersive technology working at that architecture studio. I watched them create digital twins with Unreal Engine and all of these amazing video game softwares, really pushing the boundaries of what these tools were designed to do in a way. And I have a personal challenge and I guess a value that I like to encourage in our office is to become an effective technology-based communicator. So that means in the 21st century, we're not talking about those really long planning documents. We're talking about making things visual in terms of videos, animations, pictures, diagrams, uh, all sorts of different types of visuals. I can't even keep up with it sometimes, all these amazing tools that are out there. And one thing to highlight is when we get requests for these types of visualization services, they are all unique. There isn't this one size fits all approach. And the level of detail in what we provide them really varies based on the needs of the project. But some of the requests that we frequently hear is, for example, help us understand what could happen if we do or do not implement whatever. What is it? A zoning ordinance change, or help us understand what's going to happen if this parkway comes through our area. What happens if we don't do anything? What could that look like? Help us visualize this issue so we can more clearly communicate with our residents. Or they may not have the technical skills in-house to develop something like a map or a 3D model. So, hey, Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, can you support us in doing that? And those are the types of, more recently, the planning and design visualizations that we've created. And like I mentioned, the level of detail can vary. In the last slide, it's pretty lower level of detail because that was the stage of the planning process, doing more of a diagrammatic style. But we can also produce more detailed visualizations with SketchUp and Twinmotion, showing what could happen if the shopping mall that is kind of a dead mall in Clearwater could be use some infill and create some housing, make a more walkable community. What could that really look like? So we help our members test the different ideas with this use of technology. And we have a general process. This is an example of that workflow. Like I mentioned, every project's unique, so there might be pieces of this that we don't explore as in depth, but it all starts with the client engagement, determining the scope of the project, and we move through a variety of technical tools that we use in-house. Esri is a big player in our toolkit, creating 3D maps and other mapping applications, moving into SketchUp, so taking those ideas into the 3D space to better understand the dynamic of the idea in physical space, moving into Twinmotion to help make it look more realistic if that's what's needed, back and forth with the client many times until we get those pieces right for whatever their need is. And then going into post-production, we use Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, and Premiere to make videos also. So those are some tools we use very often. ArcGIS Online. And then Unreal Engine is new to us. We're testing the video game environment with VR. And then, of course, in situ has been one of our newest and most exciting integrations. So taking things through this pipeline into the physical space, into the streets for that type of one-on-one community engagement, point of view engagement. So we do a variety of deliverable types. They run through this process. And it's been effective so far, but those are just examples of some of the general uses of our planning and design visualization services. But more recently, we've been asked to try to tackle some of these challenges, right? Flooding has been really a challenge this year, record rain activity, and a lot of climate related issues, sea level rise. And as we're engaging with communities, feedback from our member governments is that there's this sense of engagement fatigue. So different community members find it difficult to perceive the grand scope of what changes are needed. These are things that we show them scenarios that happen 30 years in the future, but we want them to make changes today. You know, that's something that's really difficult for the everyday person who's not really versed in this topic in climate science for them to understand and to act. And then sometimes when you're reading the news and you're seeing these types of things, like the reality or the uncertainty around what's going on and what could happen, if it's presented in a way that's just too scary, it could lead to apathy and discouragement. So we're seeing all of these things happening, and we reflect on that and try to better understand how can we, through our planning and design visualization services, help them effectively communicate and be effective communicators in the 21st century. So the last few years, we've gone through that process in a couple different case examples I'll show you, but we learned a few things along the way, and these are my personal lessons learned, and they really align well with the use of in situ, and I'll touch on that again later, but in situ is helping us do all of these things a bit better. The first one is tell a story. So in this example, we created a story to help our area better understand the risks of hurricanes. Tampa Bay hasn't been directly hit by a major hurricane in over 100 years. And this is a map showing Category 5 hurricanes hitting throughout the country and Latin America, South America. But the risk is really there. We've been lucky. Here we are here, dodging all these spaghettis. But if we were to create a story about what the impacts could look like, science says that people are more likely to remember a story and remember the information associated with the story than just to spit out statistics about the impacts of a major hurricane. So that's what we did. We imagined, what if a Category 5 hurricane came to our region, and what kind of story could we tell about that based in facts? So we created Hurricane Phoenix in 2009, and that's a story that helps support regional emergency response and economic recovery planning. We modeled the impacts of a Category 5 hurricane in the worst case path of the storm hitting our region, and we worked with the National Hurricane Center and FEMA's hazardous loss tool to estimate what those impacts could look like, and modeled we'd see over 21 feet of storm surge, over 150 miles per hour winds, Cat 5 winds, loss of critical infrastructure. Our bridges that connect these major cities would be in disrepair for quite a while. Essentially, the city of St. Pete would become an island with flood inundation. So this is some eye-opening stuff, and we really hope we'll never have to experience this, right? But that's where the 3D technology or just digital communication in general can help people better understand, without having to go through this firsthand, what those impacts could look like. So we're rehearsing the future with these digital tools. And I encourage you to check out our plan that goes along with some of these resources. And along with that, we created some videos, because it's not just about the plan, it's about helping people understand the plan and communicate the plan. And what they're really going to watch, we hope, is these videos. So we created these videos. There's several of them. They're about 20 minutes in total. I encourage everyone to check it out. But we are recreating the scene using video from meteorologists, from actual hurricane impacts, and then some that were modeled to imitate what could happen at our airport and to our bridges if a storm like this could happen. And then this is an image from Mexico Beach in the Panhandle, where they were struck by a Category 5 hurricane in 2018. So we wanted to tell that story as well, to help people understand and to learn from what's going on in other parts of Florida, listening to the stories of small business owners who are recovering now several years later. So the real takeaway here are that stories are really helpful, and then it's not just about the story, it's how you reinforce it with your visualization or your communication tools that help really drive that home for people. So I really encourage you to check out our videos, come to our website, and we're actually going to be updating this Hurricane Phoenix scenario later this year. So if you're interested in that, check it out and stay tuned. So lessons learned in risk communication number 2, make it personal. So this one, you can't just show people, these types of bad situations and risks happening. You can show them that, but if you don't make it personal for them and help them align that with something that's really relevant in their life, it's not going to make as much of an impact. And I learned this through a couple different projects, but this one's an example of our Resilient Ready project, where I understood deeply that place matters. So we're talking about flooding adaptation and solutions on site in these communities. We did 3 different charrettes throughout the Tampa Bay area, and the importance of actually physically being there, meeting with communities, doing site visits and walkthroughs really helped us to better understand their needs and help them understand what this process looks like, and that there is light at the end of the tunnel for some of these really intense flooding issues that we're seeing. And to support some of that, we can create these 3D tools. This one was created with SketchUp and Twinmotion, where and there's an alligator. I hope everybody sees that. We can show this, right? Anywhere Florida, we can do a hurricane impacts demo. But that's not going to be as meaningful to people if they don't recognize that place. So I learned that when I worked with the Hillsborough County to develop this visualization of the convention center in Tampa, which is that postcard recognizable place in Tampa that folks understand and know, have been there, walked that site. This is showing what the site could look like at different storm surge categories, different heights of storm surge. So this type of visualization where they recognize the place, that's going to help them better understand and personally see the impact and what that could mean for them. And again, this one was with SketchUp and Twinmotion. And then number 3, emphasize solutions. So I'm really inspired by this work down at Florida Atlantic University, the Center for Urban Environmental Solutions. They're working on not just the problems of flooding, they're not just showing the problems, they're working on the real solutions. And they're using a lot of different types of technologies. This example here, they show this on the map, a top-down view of what's going on in that community, but that's not where they leave it. They're making different visualizations that really put it within the physical space, into the streetscape and right away, what that water level could look like. And that was a true inspiration for us at the Regional Planning Council. And it's one of the reasons we got in touch with In Situ, is because we wanted to learn how to do this. We knew how to make the models, but we wanted to learn how to bring this into our design process. Because if you're going to show risk, you have to also show what's being done about it. So they're showing risk really effectively. They're using the VR headsets. That was inspiring, but they're also showing, what do you do about it? You show them the no intervention, but then you also show what's possible and what those solutions can look like down the road. And with some of that inspiration, we've been testing new and different tools. This is a bioswale demonstration that we created using SketchUp. So just modeling it in 3D and then somewhat decorating it in Twinmotion to bring some more realistic elements to it. And it actually is animated, and these people walk and things move. But we're going to develop similar versions of this for different types of adaptation solutions, so that we can always show, what is that solution? What possibilities do we have to work with when it comes to different coastal areas and flooding? And that led us to working with In Situ. So we had this resiliency summit back in May, and we thought, how cool would it be? It's a summit all about sea level rise and climate change, and it's on the beach. How cool would it be if we could create some type of adaptation solution, something like this, but really put it out on the beach and let people interact with it? So we decided to create a visualization of an elevated building above 5 feet of flood. And we marketed that. We had our booth at the summit. And throughout the summit, we encouraged people to check out this QR code. And here it is here. If you want to scan it with your phones now, you can check it out in wherever you are. But this was the idea, and we made it in SketchUp. So we started by just creating a 3D model. This is the same QR code in case you missed it before. And then we tested different ideas of the water, because we weren't really sure what would water look like in AR. And that's something that's I hadn't seen tested very often. So I thought it would be interesting to try different types of water levels. This one, just a surface plane with a texture. And then this one where you have the surface plane and you drag it down to create an actual block, and then texture all around it. that might give a more effective look of water in the AR space. We ended up going with the one on the left, that surface plane type, because when you show it and you can see it in your, if you all are scanning this, you can see what's underneath, and we thought that was a bit more effective. But I think there's also potential in this. We just wanted to pick one. We had to pick one, right? So then we created the 3D model. We exported it to .glb format, and then we uploaded that and placed it on the map in In-Situ Pro. And this process here is standard. But what wasn't as typical for most users is that you're not putting this on a beach away from the road. So we were pushing the boundaries a bit by being far from the road. But after some troubleshooting and some service support from In-Situ, we were able to realize that you had to scan the QR code, and then as it's loading, try to find Google Street View, try to bring it somewhere where there's road so that it can populate the model and then swing it back to the beach. So after some troubleshooting, we were able to do that. But here is the star. This is where our site was for the event. And it was a lot of fun. During the barbecue part of the summit, we had our demonstration live and people were playing with it. This is Mayor Brown from the city of Largo. And we had a lot of different elected officials and local government staff trying this out and thinking about ways that they might be able to apply this technology to solve some of the challenges that they're dealing with in their community. I'll play it one more time. So yeah, people were walking through it, which I don't know if that's the best. I don't know. I guess it moves a bit when you move, but it was fun to see how people were engaging with it. And those trees are actually 3D models. They weren't really there, and I think they look really great. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. And that's not where we stopped. We wanted to have more fun. We created a couple just for fun, different models to put at our booths. And while we were inside, try to get them to, when they get outside, they'll know how to use this tool. So we're giving them some instruction at our booth and, hey, populate this model. And it's just a little display of the beach to go along with our theme for the summit. And then more recently, just a few weeks ago, we were at the APA Florida conference in Tampa, and we showed this model off again, the 5-foot water line. And we had some engagement from different planners from throughout the region. It's really interesting. And our fun model for that one was actually a big pirate ship. So we wanted to win the best decorated booth at the conference, and I still never heard who won, but I think we were definitely a contender with our AR. I didn't see anyone else with that, but that was a lot of fun. So, thinking about all the different ways to use it, I think it's been really effective with demonstrating flooding and showing a solution and not just the flooding. We want to continue to explore different scenarios, so showing multiple varieties of buildings or different adaptation solutions. So in just a recap, some of the lessons learned: tell a story. Those are easier for folks to remember, and they're definitely powerful communication tools. Number 2, make it personal. So make something that's recognizable, put it in someone's community. Make sure that whatever it is really they help identify with it. That's going to go a lot farther than just some miscellaneous model or tool that they can't recognize. And then emphasize solutions. So don't just show all the bad, also show what the solutions are, so that you're not experiencing that engagement fatigue and you have interested community members throughout the planning process. And we got a lot of positive feedback. So we are integrating this In-Situ through our workflow. And if you're interested in the work that we do, I encourage you to check out our website. Link is listed here. And a good transition, and I'm happy to take questions after this, but Alana Todd in our office, she spent a long time working on this really cool living shoreline adaptation. So really pushing the boundaries again, but trying to create examples, educational resources for our members to show them, what types of adaptation solutions are available in different locations. I want to send this off to some of our members, and they can take the QR code out into their community and help them place it. And that's the type of service that we're trying to offer to those members. And we're going to keep working, moving forward towards those types of resources. And again, I just want to thank everybody for being here and thank In-Situ for the opportunity to share our work.
All right. Thanks so much, Sarah. That was really amazing. Really actionable lessons. And like, I can tell there's even some stuff you didn't mention that is like in our best practices guide, like how you decorated your table. It's like, it's not
Yes.
just the pirate ship in 3D. Like, you really did the immersive, like, brought it into the real space and like built around the AR, which is just accentuates it even more, which is like such an amazing practice. So we want to hop over to some questions, and we've got loads of time for questions, which is awesome. But while you're thinking of questions, and you're welcome to type either in the chat or unmute yourself, you can use the hand raise function, I think, if there is such a thing, or is that just on the webinar? In any case, but some way that you can indicate if you want to ask your question via your microphone, it's totally fine. But while you're thinking of a question, I just want to do a live demonstration of how you can create a project like this in 10 minutes with In-Situ Pro. And you've received a link in your email reminder about how to create an account. If you haven't done so yet, this is a great time to create a free basic account. I'm just gonna walk you through that process really quick. So I'm gonna share my screen here. And this is exactly what we do when we're setting up a demo project. So when you're in your account and you logged in, you'll be greeted with the projects page. The project page is where you can see all of your AR projects. And with the free account, you get one project that you can test In-Situ with. So to create a new project, it's 4 steps. The first step is to upload a model, and we're going to try a project using this model of Seawall, which is a real project we did in Charleston, South Carolina, with our partners there, Moondog Animation and Virtual America and City of Charleston. And so they Moondog Animation modeled this perimeter protection barrier for Charleston's flood-prone downtown, beautiful city. This was based on some earlier phases of the project, just sort of extrapolating. So once they had created this section, we uploaded it and we placed it in Charleston. So you just type the address in, and it doesn't have to be like exactly where, and I'll tell you why a little bit later. But once you get it in the vicinity that you want, we were down here. You can see why Charleston is flood prone, right? So you can put it roughly where you want it using this gizmo. And here's a quick tip. If you click the rotate button here and then click and drag with your left click, you can actually get it in 3D like that. Get it as close as you want for starters, and then publish it. You'll be able to select the title, Seawall Demo, and a description, and you can also control the thumbnail that comes up in the app clip. Reminder that your viewers will not have to download an app to look at this. This is all, we fit it within a app clip or instant app. That's why our model file size limit is a little low of 25 megs, but we have lots of ways you can fit great models inside that file size and make it super accessible so that people can use it and they don't have to have a lot of bandwidth on their phones, etc. So once you've done that, you can publish the project, make it public, and it takes 1 to 2 minutes usually to generate the code. Once you've generated a QR code associated with this project, your project will be living out there on that site digitally, and this code will stay tied to your project. So for example, if we do some outreach and decide to change the design, and you can go back in and edit this project, change the model out for a new model, not only will the position of the model stay, but also the QR code will stay. So if you've produced pamphlets or signage, you'll still be able to keep using those. It's a great way to close the loop on your engagement and show, you were listening and you're making updates. We had a project in DC that lived for a year on a street corner like this, and we kept updating the model. So it should be live now. Should be able to test it remotely. And I can't go to Charleston, unfortunately, but this is a video from that spot down there of what it would look like. And so people were very concerned about a seawall blocking views in Charleston. And I actually had a much bigger idea of what, like, I thought it was going to be this giant thing, from Blade Runner. But when we got there and looked at this portion of it, it was actually a lot more understated and actually enhanced, like added more pedestrian space to the road. So just an example of what you can do. So we'll hope you'll try it out, give us some feedback. And then you notice when you close, it says test it on site. That's because we have a feature where you can go out with your phone on site and actually edit the positioning and fine tune it, the rotation, the scale of the model to be exactly how you want it, and then save it, and it will save back to the project. So that's the final step in our pipeline. And it's so easy to use that edit mode that you can give it to your client even if you can't go and save a plane ticket and go out on site and let them edit it and fine tune it and save it for you. We like that feature because we invented it for ourselves. Anyway, that's the Institute Pro. We also linked in the chat the Slack group that we have for our user community. So you're welcome to join that group. That we're sharing our projects there in a channel. We have events, updates, and tips, and just a good place to get quick help if you need help. You can also get help by scheduling a 15-minute call with us anytime. We've got support at any time, and we're happy to give you sort of our 1 hour boot camp of best practices for AR, including the event planning, engagement, all the other stuff. And we're still working on a handbook for that. I know we mentioned getting the handbook. You'll be the first people to receive that once it's ready as a webinar attendees. So very excited. And I think we're ready for questions. We've got loads of time. So any questions for Sarah?
We invite you all, whoever feels comfortable, to share their video and unmute yourself if you have any question.
I'm going to scroll up and find some stuff in the chat. One question was, Sarah, what are some skills, like tech skills and media skills, that you think planners would benefit from learning? How much of that 3D and model creation do you guys do yourselves? And like, yeah, what was that like? Did you have to skill up?
Yes, that's a great question. So when I was in school, I took I guess it was a technology for planners type course, and that was really helpful. I think it was one of the best courses that I took there, because I use these skills every day. With graphic design, like learning some of the more technical tools like Photoshop and Illustrator are helpful. These days there's Canva and all of these other more accessible options, but learning about the principles of graphic design are really helpful if you want to be that effective communicator, and develop some really, use less words to create different types of planning documents and flyers. Some of that graphic design skill is really essential. SketchUp, I learned that in school and continue to learn it every time we have a project. And I think that's a really great tool to use, and it's pretty accessible. And if you want to explore other tools after you learn that one, that's a good starting point for other types of CAD programs. And you can do a lot with it. You can interface with Twinmotion or Unreal and do some really interesting work. So I think getting the basics of graphic design and then SketchUp under your belt would be really helpful.
Yeah, a lot of our clients use SketchUp to do quick models, like for proposals, and it seems like a great input for our tool. It has an export function since a couple of months ago that exports directly to the GLB files that we take as one of the model formats. So yeah, definitely got to push that. I also give a shout out to Esri's tools. We've made use of story maps personally ourselves, which can be great for doing digital self-guided tours and so forth. So.
And I'll also add GIS. That's another essential. You want to learn that. I think most planning schools equip you with some GIS, but if you're looking to get into this work, I think that's a good place to start as well.
Awesome. Any more questions? Feel free to unmute if you'd like to, or type them.
I think you asked about how we make the models, or the second part to your question. But we do a lot of this in-house. We use like some of the SketchUp 3D warehouse type things that are available for public use. And then we might start there, or we might create something entirely new, or we might take a model that we find and then adapt it to our needs or build the site around it. So it really is all dependent on the end goal and what our communities are looking to communicate. So that's where we would use different models, or we would create our own models.
Awesome. Someone thumbs up, or anyone raising their hand? Pavel?
No, just a thumbs up. I was considering whether I would ask the question, but I feel it was kind of answered. First of all, Sarah, thank you very much for the presentation. I cannot explain enough how exciting it is to actually see AR in actual use for governmental-ish, or it's just really exciting to see that actually happening. My question, I guess, was partially answered in the sense of, in my line of work, we create interactive apps online with 3D models. But we have this moment, and you probably know what I'm talking about, when you get when you get an actual model for your client, but then it's just not, it's not simplified enough. It will be super heavy. It will have a lot of stuff. I'm not even talking about the Z fighting, which will be like 90% of it, which is, oh my God, what a hassle. So we need to calibrate and just kind of decide whether we want to build it from scratch, or do we want to, simplify the model and polish the model. Anything with that, line that you experienced before the point when you decide, oh, this will take too much time, I'll just probably better build it myself. And this goes for you, Nick, and Dan as well. I guess the same question.
Yeah. What do you think, Sarah? It's pretty common, right? To get a really heavy
Yes.
model or something.
I think it just depends on the time, like you mentioned. Sometimes it might be faster to just take a look at that model and understand, you understand the height, you understand like the critical pieces of what they're trying to explain with this model, but then you go back and create it yourself and just use as minimal polygons as possible to create a very light and clean model. And it's to scale, there's no issues with that. That might be what I would do. It just depends on how much time you have and how complicated that would be based on whatever you're working on.
Yeah, a lot of it, I'd say like a lot of us are kind of waiting to see, right? If like there's more AI tools coming online that would help with optimization. But I guess one of the things with optimization is that it's a lot of human choices you have to make in there. And like that includes like what side of the building are you going to be viewing it from for this visualization? Where can you cut the detail and where should you add it? So some of that stuff might not be possible to automate, right? And then Lauren has asked in the chat how easy or difficult it is to update the flood modeling data after you're created and released the AR project. And maybe I'll combine that with a very frequently asked question, which is how do you compare two project ideas or to an A and a B proposal?
Is that for me?
Yeah, I mean, do you?
Oh, just in general or with it?
It sounds like with the flood visualization,
Oh,
it's
okay.
based on real data, but it's not actually creating new data for flood. Is that right? It's just
Right.
showing some data, right?
It's shown, yes. So we use different tools to develop the models and projections of flooding. That's a whole other webinar, but when we build the in situ, or when we go into the AR space, it's really simply the Z, like where is the water line that we are comparing this a scenario, right? Which simulation are we projecting in AR? Where is that water line? We're still developing best practices for sloping to the water, that part, but we do have DEMs and other geospatial file formats that I want to discuss with you all and see. I know the Esri integration is something that sounds really cool, and that might be able to get us there, but I really believe it's possible to have the 3D data with the slope from the top water line at different scenarios in the AR space, and then comparing them. I know that right now you have different QR codes and they're static QR codes, so you can just replace the backend model in the website as a pro user, which is great. I'd love to see eventually, and I know it's something you guys are working on, like being able to swap different models with one QR code, like, or click on option 1, option 2, and do like real scenario assessments in one QR code. That would be really cool. And
Yeah,
that
definitely something on our roadmap.
Yeah, those are
Yeah, we've done it for some special projects before. And also, like, I'll say, like, one easy way to do it now is to just publish 2 projects in the same spot and have those 2 codes out there for people. It also helps with to not be as confusing for people when they can physically know, like, I'm going to choose A and walk over to this sign, and I'm going to choose B and walk over to this sign. So.
That makes sense.
And thanks, Michael, for the shout out. Michael's someone else we met in Seattle, an XR designer. And yeah, if you've worked in XR field for AR, you know how much time you have to spend out on site getting a project ready is like a big part of the workload. So we definitely tried to minimize that with in situ.
I think if I can chime in to build on this topic of updating the models. And hey, everyone, I'm Dana, founder and CEO of Institute, and thank you all. Sarah and Alana are truly like one of our superstar creators, because I think like you really got it, like how it's not about the technology, but what it enables you and what conversations you're able to establish thanks to them. And that's also why the platform is designed to allow you, the planner, the creator, as much flexibility as you want, and to truly start from ideation and maybe between you and yourself and your team, then through engaging stakeholders or the public, getting feedback, incorporate it, sharing more with the same QR. So ideally, like the QR is just there. And we have an example of a project that we're doing with an architect in DC that we actually activated exactly a year ago, last September. And they've been updating the model, like it's a city-owned land, and it's already an approved project, but designs are being finalized. And they were able to update the model along this year and share the evolvement of the design. So yeah, we are really like that's the goal. On the kind of like 3D and integration, I think one of our amazing learnings, or probably the biggest since we launched Institute Pro, is seeing how creators from the planning and architecture world are different than pure AR designers, right, and creators, and truly trying to remove those frictions and therefore integrate to powerful platforms like Esri's technologies, ArcGIS Urban, Autodesk Forma, you know, like all of those tools out there that Sarah mentioned, and other planners and architects like all of us are using.
Yeah, I had another question about the design portion. So like when you create 3D for visualization, how do you choose the right art style? Like aside from what fits or runs fast in the program you're using, like how do you pick the style? Like should it be really realistic? Should it be more stylized? What works for what use case?
Yeah, great question. I like to think about it as like level of detail, and like LOD 1, 2, 3, and you can really go as detailed as you want, and it just depends on how much time you might have, how much like scope of or a budget there might be allocated to this. What I think really drives it is what the community or the representative of the community that you're working with, the staff member, like what their expectations are, and what problem are they trying to solve with this visualization. So for example, with I showed a shopping mall example earlier, they wanted that to look pretty realistic. They wanted to see trees, they wanted to see a lot of detail, and that might not work in every situation. If you're working on a plan and it's in the beginning stages of the community develop or community engagement process, you might not want to come out there with all of this level of detail, high level of detail, because it might make them feel like, hey, what am I doing here? You already designed the whole space. So, you know, you might want to come out with more some massing just to get some space planning done. It depends on where you are in the process. But with the visualization of the mall, they wanted it to look realistic. They wanted to use it as almost like a marketing tool for a lot of different stakeholders. So they wanted that high level of detail. They wanted you to think, well, what's possible if we did this? What's the best sort of outcome we could come up with?
Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction too, like between what classical sort of ArcViz, these glossy images, and often they're used as marketing or to get something approved, and almost like want you to gloss over the details. I don't want to like, yeah, implicate that too much, but like, yeah, definitely some details in those ArcViz things are more like not have any, they're just sort of decoration, right?
Right.
But whereas visualization is much more like a decision-making tool, and so the details actually really matter a lot in what you choose to include and not include. And also, I think in decision-making visualization, you can do so much more with more simple models because there's just not trying to, it doesn't have to be super pretty all the time, depending on what the use case is. If you're having a conversation about where to put something, right, versus at the end of the process, if you need buy-in and that's what you're doing, then that's fine. Or if you're informing people about a construction site or what's happening. Super interesting. Any other questions for Sarah? Does anyone else work in, because I know we have people listening who are in this field and professionals, and I'm just curious if any parts of the presentation resonated with your work, or if you have stories about like risk communication, that notion of like sharing the solutions and the problems, the danger of paralysis, or what else? Anything about hurricanes, flooding? Anyone working on projects related to that?
A common request I've gotten lately, it's outside of the climate resilience topic, but density and development and concerns from residents about different heights of buildings in different areas. And I think that the AR tool is really useful in that scenario. And then also with level of detail, like sometimes if people can see the type of form of the building and the style of the architecture, it might make a difference in how they might feel about the project. So if you're not showing that level of detail in that case, you might they might not understand the final result that's intended, and be distracted by the height of it if you're just showing massing. So it's interesting how in that type of density conversation, level of detail might be really critical to show off the architectural style. But if you're just trying to decide where a building should go, it might just be simple massing.
Awesome. Yeah, in case anyone's trying to try out Institute Pro, we had a guide on how to do it, and I thought it might be useful to give you all a model that you can use, just that we know already works. So here's a simple 3D building model from our guide that feel free to try it out with. If you want, let us know. So yeah, that's great. So thanks so much for everyone for coming out. We've got about 9 minutes left for any more questions. But if no one has any more questions, I think we'll just give a final pitch to join our community, join our Slack group, or come to an upcoming event or webinar. We'll be putting the next webinars up on LinkedIn to join. And also, we always post the link also in the Slack group as well. So we hope to see some of you there, or maybe even have you as a speaker in the future. That Slack link one more time. And anyone else from the team or have anything you want to say?
Thanks, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thanks again, and yeah, I hope we can make it to Florida pretty soon to
Please do.
come to some event. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah and Alana, and thank you all for joining.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Nick, for hosting.